Okay, now we're going to look at emotions when it comes to investing. So when a person has a portfolio, what are the typical emotions that they will be going through? There are four. The first one is fear, which is probably the king of all emotions. Hope, regret, and euphoria. So fear is very debilitating. It can cause the investor to panic and do things that they wouldn't do if they were following their plan. Fear will cause the person to see things that sometimes aren't there. And it's no different when it comes to investing. There can be fear at the time of getting into an investment, worrying about what the future would bring. There can be fear during the investment, where the investor is thinking, do I sell, do I hold? And there can be even fear after the investment is done in terms of if the investor had stayed on, what could have happened? Or if they had cut out, would that have been better? So that is a huge, huge one. And many investors and portfolio managers are sometimes in these states of fear, or just everyday people who may be managing their own portfolios. Now, the second one is hope. You should have hope in life. You should hope that things work out well for you. You should hope for a good future. But when it comes to investing, this is one of the worst emotions that you can have. Why is that? Well, say for example, you are hoping that the price of a asset is going to rise, but instead it doesn't, and it falls down, and you hold on, you hold on, you hold on, and you hope that your investment will come back, and it doesn't, and it just absolutely drains your account. The third emotion, regret. Sometimes an investor can sell prematurely. They may have a position in the market that they're happy with, and they decide to come out, and later they see that they could have made so much more if they had stayed on. Okay? And the fourth one is euphoria. And euphoria is a state of mind where the investor is absolutely dazzled with the idea that everything is going to continue nicely into the future. The investor may have had a good run of particular investments, and they think that, well, this should continue, this is going to continue. And then what ends up happening is that they stop performing, and suddenly the account starts to take a nosedive. So they had made good gains on their account, and now the account is starting to take a nosedive. So euphoria is a really powerful emotional state that is really, really dangerous for an investor. Most investors think that when they are making outsized returns, there's nothing to worry about. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The investor is most vulnerable when they've had exactly those outsized returns, because they will start to think very highly of themselves, and oftentimes the performance starts to slack. And when the performance starts to slack, all of a sudden, as I said, there's a crash in the account. So why are emotions important in the investment cycle? They are important because they play a huge role in the perception of market information. For example, if the investor is coming into their performance with fear in their mind, or they are distracted with other life events that are contaminating their thought processes, they are going to see the market in a fearful way. Conversely, if the investor has had an argument or has a short fuse when it comes to dealing with people, and it may just be one of those days that things haven't worked out. It may have been that the taxi was driving in a really rubbish way, or the investor was inconvenienced in his everyday life, or had to wait very long for an appointment that cost them money and time. Well, all of these emotions can then play on when the investor comes and is actually in the act of their performance. It can cause them to see things in different ways. You may ask how? Well, for example, they may be chasing, they may be very impulsive, they may see the market in an angry way because of what's happened in their own personal life. And there seems to be some kind of a correlation between the two. Okay? Now, the important thing is to be aware of that. And an emotion is not psychological. An emotion is a biological action potential that coordinates activity between the organism, that would be the investor, and the environment, that would be the markets. So an emotion has more power and more sway than the rational thinking. Have you ever found yourself in a difficult situation? Yeah, I'm sure you have. It's life. And in that moment, maybe sometimes you have tried to calm yourself down through self-talk, for example, saying, calm down now, everything's going to be okay, you're going to get through this. And then all of a sudden, you find the emotion hijacking your thought processes, and you end up doing exactly what you said you're not going to do. Exactly. Because in the way we think about it, and the way we should think about it, is that there are two hemispheres in the brain. We have the left brain, which is the rational thinking part. That's the part that is good at computation, thinking about things logically, rationally. And then we have the right brain, which is the emotional brain. The two hemispheres of the brain. And as I said, it is the right brain that is more powerful and has more sway over your thinking. And for those investors that try to subdue the emotion, end up being torn apart in the investment cycle. So it's about being aware of that. And a smart investor should be a student of emotion. Because if the investor is not a student of emotion, they cannot understand it in a way that they can take advantage of it. Emotions are very powerful if you know how to use them to your advantage. Additionally, an emotion has components to it. It has a breathing signature, it has a tension signature, and these things are very, very interconnected. For example, when you are stressed out, you will notice that your heart rate goes up. You'll notice some fixation in your gaze. You may feel tenseness in your body, in your muscles, in your jaw, in your throat. All of these parts are components of an emotion. So being able to understand emotion and take steps to try to control it is in the investor's best interests. I really hope you enjoyed this video. We've explored the theoretical side of the emotions when it comes to investing, And please remember, nothing here is meant as investment advice. I'm just talking about it from a theoretical standpoint and having a discussion about it. I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Cheers.